And welcome back to another episode of the Double Doink Podcast. My name is Brett Deek. Thanks so much for tuning in today. If you haven't already, hit that subscribe button. It would be greatly appreciated. You can also rate the podcast and review the podcast wherever you listen to your podcast. It would also be greatly appreciated. We're talking strictly Philadelphia Eagles today. We're going to take a look at the interior rushers and the edge rushers that we think the Eagles could look at for their first round pick, which is currently listed at 10th overall. No one else would do it than my man, my friend, Thomas Petersen. What's going on, my man?
What's going on, Brent?
Not much. We're in draft season.
Oh yeah, I'm ready to get it. I'm ready to get it here already. But
yeah,
we have to get through all these positions. No better way to do it but starting at the defensive line, to be honest.
Yeah, this is where we think they're going to lean for their first pick. I think we said like a 90% sure that this is going to be the pick. We touched on a lot of these guys, full disclosure, last episode, but we didn't fully dive in. So we thought this would be a great time to fully dive into all these guys, as last week was kind of like an introduction to the draft episode. So before we dive in, we have 6 guys here. Okay, 6 players that we think are going to be a potential option for the Eagles' first pick. Before we do that, let's kind of zoom out a little bit and take a look at how big of a need this is for the Eagles, interior rusher and edge rusher. So why don't we start with the interior? Because I went down a Milton Williams rabbit hole last night, like 9 p.m., because I got nothing better to do with my life before the March Madness and during the March Madness final game, just watching Milton Williams tape. Sounds
like a fair future time.
I have no life, man. Absolutely no life. But what's your take on how big of a need the Eagles defensive tackle position is? And I guess how important it is for them to come out of here with a starter.
How important it is for them to come out with a starter,
at all in the draft,
not necessarily like they have a foundation set up to have a rotation this year. You can always add another guy in there, but it's not strictly necessary. When bringing back Fletcher Cox and bringing in Kentavious Street, they have their rotation in there, and if they're going to go the same 3 interior guys as last year, they're going to want to bring somebody in just for the whole that purpose of it. I think they look at Tui Pelotu to also come in there as the rotational guy, and like you said, Milton Williams in there as well, expecting a big jump from him, expecting a big jump from Jordan Davis, but really it's a lot of projection with how the D-line is looking right now. And obviously it's a position where they've been paying tons of money to Fletcher Cox and to Javon Hargrave, and they always spend on the defensive line. So, and moving forward, it doesn't get any cheaper. Like we saw Javon Hargrave's contract here, 30 years old. So that's going to be a motivator to get some guys on a cheap rookie deal who are really contributors and who can be starters. So I think D-line is always a massive position of importance to the Eagles. But it's not a 100% you have to get a starter in this draft.
I agree. I don't think it's imperative that they come out with a starter. I think they're going to want to add some competition and someone to the edge or the interior rotation. And just look at the history of draft picks and look at the history of the money spending on this team and where they've used their resources. They're most likely going to target a defensive tackle at some point in their first 3 picks. That is probably your best bet. And let's quickly move over to the edge rusher position. How important do you think it is for the edge? Because I might think edge is a little more important than defensive tackle right now. Just take a look at the depth chart. I'm worried about Brandon Graham not falling off, but worried about the production. He had such high production last year. It's really hard to bank on that again. Do I think he could? Yes. But I think it's more than likely that he has some sort of drop off. Derek Barnett is now sitting in the rotation. Whatever you get for him, whatever we get from him is a bonus. So you can't really bank on Derek Barnett to give you production. I would like them to add an edge rusher that is in the rotation day 1 in their first 3 picks. I think it's just as important or more important than defensive tackle. What say you?
Slightly disagree, simply because we have your starting rotation there. Those guys are locked in for several years moving forward. But then again, it's a super high paid position. It's always a position of importance, and the Eagles just like to have this heavy rotation of quality players in there. I think Brandon Graham signed a 2-year extension.
It was a 1-year deal, right? 1 year, $6 million.
No, I think it actually was 2. So he's guaranteed to play throughout. He wanted to play 15 years, and I think they gave him that deal to do that. Or maybe I'm wrong. Anyways, so they still have Hassan Reddick under contract for 2 more years, if I'm not mistaken. Josh Sweat for 2 more years as well. So, like, they always look to add extra guys in there, but I think the rotation for this year is pretty much set. Like, you can go into the season with this rotation, and it wouldn't be an issue at all.
So Brandon Graham, it's hard to tell from the over the cap because there's so much void stuff stuck on the back of the contract. So I thought it was a 1-year deal, but you could be right. He did say he wanted to play 2 more years.
Yeah, and I think I guess it would kind of make sense to. Nope. He signed through. He signed through 2024.
Okay. So even then, like I still think like adding a young producer to this rotation is going to be key because Josh Sweat is signed through 2024. Hassan Reddick is only signed through 2024. So these guys are coming up with contracts that are going to be expired in a couple of years. Like I feel like adding youth to this position is going to be key for them. This is a good time. Like this is a good edge rusher class as well. Not like top high, but there's a lot of depth, which we'll touch in later episodes. We're going to focus on the top guys, but even some of these top guys I've been more impressed with as I've watched them go, like as the days have gone on and I've watched them.
Yeah, I think the edge specific guys is kind of slim, to be honest. I think it's a lot of guys you could move into that 3-4, 3-5 tech defensive tackle position. Like there's a bunch of dudes there who have pass rushing ability, but strictly edge rushers and guys who are really athletic enough to pull off several pass rush moves in a single block against an offensive tackle. I don't know, man. We're gonna get into it.
Okay, quickly, one more thing before we get into it. We were going to discuss offensive tackles and offensive linemen on this episode. We made a last-minute pivot and decided to just focus on edge rushers and interior defenders. We are both of the opinion that the Eagles probably won't go offensive line with the 10th overall pick or wherever they end up picking their first pick, just due to the fact that they have their offensive tackles locked up for a few more years. They have Cam Jurgens going at guard. Offensive line depth is a need. Don't get me wrong here. But I don't think they're going to be using high value picks on it. And you agree with me, right, Thomas? Like it just doesn't seem like the way to go right now. You have Jeff Stellan to develop these guys, and why use a prime resource on an offensive lineman right now?
Yeah, I guess, and what it kind of comes down to is not that they wouldn't spend a 10th overall pick in this given situation on an offensive tackle if the right guy was there. We just both think that neither of these guys, whether it's Skoronski with like short arm Skoronski or it's Paris Johnson or Broderick Jones, like none of these guys who are, I think, would be the consensus 1, 2, 3 at the offensive tackle position. Some even think Skoronski would move into guard because he has so short arms.
Yeah,
but
I mean, probably going to play guard right at the gate, and both of them have their limitations.
And so the need is there for offensive line depth, but the value just isn't. Like none of those guys I would not touch at all at 10, given how deep this class is at defensive line.
Mm-hmm. Like Paris Johnson, I watched some of him today. Great run blocker, but he has his limitations in pass blocking. He still needs to get better at that.
Looks like Andre Dillard.
Yeah, and even Skoronski, like I don't see a fit there. I wouldn't hate the pick, and there's obviously a potential chance, but I highly doubt it. And we know this team pretty well. We know how he thinks, and we know how they kind of lean. I would be kind of surprised if offensive lineman is the first pick.
Yeah,
so we'll left it out to today's episode. Okay, let's dive in. Let's start with the hot name going right now, Jalen Carter. He is definitely an option for the Eagles for the first pick. A lot of news swirling around him today. There was a report from Daniel Jeremiah. There wasn't really a report. Daniel Jeremiah was on the Pat McAfee show today, and he said the reason that Jalen Carter is not taking top 10 visits is because he believes that the Eagles told Jalen Carter, if you're there at 10, we're taking you. So there's no reason to go meet with the other team because if you're there, you're in Philly. What do you make of this? I guess the Jalen Carter not taking visits from teams outside the top 10. And what do you think the likelihood that he does fall to 10?
I don't know how much to buy into that stock. And I'm saying this as a genuine thing. Like, I don't know how much that actually is agent talk and how much of that is like how that affects teams and draft stocks. And like, if it's like come get him type scenario, like you want to trade in front of the Eagles if you're somebody who's in that like lower than 10 scenario, and if you kind of want to throw out some stuff that, all right, his character concerns are overblown, and Eagles have checked him off, they're going to take him. Like, I think it's a little bit funny that it comes out now after they've had this after they had the top 30 visit with him. But I don't know how much it's agent talk, but it wouldn't surprise me if the Eagles got him in there, and they've spoken to Jordan Davis and Nakobe Dean, and they also interviewed isn't it Schumann, the
guy that looks
coach?
like me, the guy that looks like me.
Exactly, they interviewed you for defensive coordinator, and maybe you had some things to say about Carter, that
They
along with all the all the legal things that we're not going to get into, because either they check. I mean, either they say they're fine with it, they're okay, they can bypass all that, and they're okay with it, and they're okay, take him, or he's off the board. I think it's either one of those two things. There's no in between there where you say, we want to take him at 10, but might take him at 30. But like, that's not how it's going to go.
Exactly. So, yeah. If they either like him or they don't, or he's either on the board.
It's either or. Exactly. Yes. It's either or. And so just going off of that, this is a guy they might trade up for. Like we talked about whether or not they're selecting anything at 10. If he's slipping past 5, it's trade alert every single pick until we get to 10 for the Eagles, because he's a special player. And
I wanted to talk about the trade up part because I think that's important. I don't think he's going to make it to 10. I would be shocked if he makes it to 10. If you take a look at the two teams that are ahead of the Philadelphia Eagles right now, the number 8, the Atlanta Falcons, number 9, Chicago Bears.
Who also had a visit with them.
Yes. Can you take a wild guess at who the two teams were that finished 31st and 32nd in sacks last year were?
Oh, give me a hint.
It is the Atlanta Falcons and the Chicago Bears. So if they're looking to improve their pass rush, they're probably going to take a look at Jalen Carter. And if Jalen Carter makes it to 8, that means Tyree Wilson's probably off the board, and a lot of the top the guys that they wanted maybe, or like similar to Jalen Carter, are off the board. The Chicago Bears, the first thing that Ryan Poles did when he became a general manager last year was try and go sign Larry Ogunjobi to some stupid big contract. And that shows that Ryan Poles values the interior defender position, and he values pass rush as a defensive tackle. They didn't go after a defensive tackle in free agency this year. They went for linebackers. So they are clearly going to be looking to draft defensive tackles. If Jalen Carter's there at 9, he's going to be the pick. And even if he's there at 8 for Atlanta, I would be shocked if maybe they want to go quarterback, or who knows what Atlanta's thinking. But even then, I think he's a prime pick there. I think the Eagles have to get above Atlanta at 8 if they want to draft Jalen Carter. And there's another kind of interesting thing about this. There was a report from Vic Tafur, former guest on the podcast. He did say that the Las Vegas Raiders have Jalen Carter off their board. Vic Tafur is a solid reporter for the Raiders. I kind of believe it, and it kind of makes sense. Look at the Raiders draft picks the last few years. Henry Ruggs, Damon Arnett, all these guys that have failed off and have had off-field issues. So why I think Raiders having him off their board is believable, just from the fact that, hey, we need a guy that's not going to get in off-field trouble. They don't want to take that risk. And if the Raiders are there at 7, they don't have the quarterback they like, they could skirt at a 7 and trade back with the Eagles. So I think that would be the only likely outcome that Jalen Carter is a Philadelphia. I think it's possible, but I would pump the brakes on him falling to 10.
Yeah, and just to give a little bit of a full circle around it, like say the Eagles were to trade up in front of Atlanta. So going by draft value chart, the difference between 10th overall and 7th overall is 200 draft points. 200 draft points equals a early 3rd round or late 2nd round. Actually, late 2nd round is a little bit overvalued. It goes at around 280. So usually draft value points are lower in next year's draft, especially if you're trading with a team that is bound to be contenders, because you're going to get a late round pick there as well. Eagles have 2 second-round picks next year, so that is absolutely a scenario where the Eagles trade one of the 2 next year, one of the 2 second-round picks next year to go up 3 spots with the Raiders at 7.
That's a good call. Yeah, I don't think they're going to touch any of their draft picks this year to do it. They probably look at 2024 because they got They got 12
a shit ton of picks there.
Yeah, they need to do something with them. They're not going to go in an extra draft with 12 picks. That's just not going to happen.
Exactly.
So, yeah, that's the Jalen Carter thing. Let's talk about the player. What do you think about Jalen Carter?
Absurd athleticism, can rush from anywhere on the D-line, has a first step that is second only to Calijah Kancey in this draft class, and really from what you'd see, like he's explosiveness and punch, like the way he uses his hands right off the get off,
hand movement is incredible. His hands is what
is absolutely absurd. Like,
yeah,
and he's got that rare combination. Like usually when we're talking about defensive linemen, especially on the interior, is when you're talking about their pass rush, are they lateral or are they vertical pass rushers? Because like usually the heavier guys will be vertical guys. Like they usually take steps up towards the offensive lineman first. A guy like Calijah Kancey, very much so a lateral mover in that he will always clear the contact before going vertical. So going after the quarterback and upfield. Jalen Carter can work through the guy in front of him while he's also pulling off a move. Like he's fast enough in a way and has that strength to be able to do something like that. And that stuff is rare, man. And just seeing a guy of his size coming off the edge in a 7-tech is a beautiful thing. So the player checks all the boxes in my opinion.
The hand thing is what really stood out to me. Like he's got magnificent hand movement. He can get off blocks so easily. He tosses 300-pound linemen like they're nothing, and he's undersized. He had an 18.9% pass rush win rate in 2021, which led the nation. Like he was amazing in 2021. He was still really good last year. Explodes off the line. He's a top 5 pick. He, in my opinion, but outside the quarterbacks, he's the most talented player in this draft.
Yeah, and I think that was pretty much the consensus before all the quarterback hype started going about, which it always does each and every single year. He looks like a more athletic Fletcher Cox going into the draft.
I think Bryce Young, CJ Stroud, and Anthony Richardson are worth 1, 2, 3, and then I would take Jalen Carter 4. That's how I look at it. He's that good. So if he's there at 7, get that phone ringing, Howie.
Right, but can we agree that Jalen Carter is more of a unique defensive tackle prospect than Bryce Young and CJ Stroud are quarterback prospects?
Fair, 100%. Like I think they're better. He's a better player at the position than with CJ Stroud and Bryce Young are. You're looking at positional value. You need quarterbacks, right?
Yeah, makes sense.
I've been really impressed with the quarterbacks. If you want to check out a quarterback episode, check out the Double Link podcast after this. Recorded a quarterback episode yesterday. But yes, I'm all on board for Jalen Carter. I think the off-field stuff, from what I know, I'm okay with it. I know it's tough to say, but I'm fine with it, especially at pick 10 if he does fall there. I think the Eagles are as well. I think they're going to be okay with it. There's obviously a lot of other personal stuff that we don't know about that have come up in interviews. I also think part of this stuff is he's maybe not a very good interviewer. Maybe that's why he didn't want to interview with players outside the top 10. His agent is Drew Rosenhaus. Drew Rosenhaus has known to take over interviews. Eagles fans, we know he took over the Terrell Owens interview back in the day. So this is maybe like Drew Rosenhaus doing some just kind of like some agent work and making sure that he doesn't ruin his draft stock, if that makes sense.
Yeah. I think I don't have any opinions on the whole off the field. I don't know enough about it. I'm gonna let that whole thing take care of itself.
Mm-hmm. Okay, let's talk Tyree Wilson. Another player I really like, and I have a few questions about Tyree Wilson I want to throw your way. But before we do that, let's talk about him. 6'6", 271 pounds, 35 and 5/8 arm lengths, which is insane. Edge of Texas Tech. What do you like about Tyree Wilson? Hit me with your take on him.
I like Tyree Wilson's potential as a 5-tech defensive lineman. Like put him in a skill, or even 4-tech or 4-eye. Like put him in a 3-4 defense where he can be that defensive end. Isolate him up against the guard and just let him do what he does best early in his career. Like, and you can always work on the whole explosiveness in making that a more of a routine in pass rush moves. Like he's not going to wow you with any real pass rush moves, and that may be because that he primarily just dominated with his strength in college. Like maybe because he wants to have as much success as possible. He knows that powering through guys and like bull rushing, one arm extending guys is the way that he won in college, and not necessarily that he tried to display it for scouts or anything like that. That may very well be the case. And I heard some I heard some, I think it was Daniel Jeremiah who said that Tyree Wilson probably is the one who lost the most from the combine, because if he was actually on the field and doing that athletic, like we saw Nolan Smith, the way he was bending around bags had people drooling. So like had Tyree Wilson with that body frame done the same, people would be like, yep, that guy, we can work with that.
He would have been a combine star if he was.
He would probably would have. And but when you turn on the tape in itself, like he is a little bit stiff. Like you're not gonna see him, not Lukas Van Ness type stiff, but he is like he's just so damn strong. Like it does not make sense. And so like put him in one-on-ones against offensive guards in the 3-4 scheme, he'd be a star from day one.
Mm-hmm. Put
him at defensive end or edge, like put him at a 7 or 9 tech, and watch how your fan base will crumble because he is being a massive disappointment.
He majority lined up outside the tackle in last season. So he had 412 snaps outside the tackle, 106 snaps over the tackle, 13 in the B gap. But I think that like that's just the way Texas Tech ran their defense. Yeah. I think, like you said, he can play all across the line. He's versatile. He is just a different human. He looks like freak. He looks like a freak. Like let me read, like 6'6", 271 pounds. That is insane. His arm length is insane. He looks different on the field. He's so big. And I do agree with just the athleticism aspect that he would have been a combine star. I think the health thing is something we should talk about as well. He didn't participate in the combine because he's recovering from a foot injury. Apparently, it was due to the fact that the foot doctor didn't want him getting sweat on the wound on his foot. That's the reason why he didn't do it. He is going to be doing private workouts sometime in April. So he is healthy. He's going to be working out. The health thing I don't think is going to be a problem, but I just wanted to bring that up. I think this guy's got elite traits. He's insanely large frame. Like his movement skills are off the charts. I do agree his edge rushing needs help, though. He does need to learn some more edge rushing moves. He doesn't have the craziest bend. But I think him and Lukas Van Ness are sort of similar players, but I think Tyree Wilson's at a way better tier than Lukas Van Ness.
They're not comparable.
Okay, thank you. Because I was getting heat on Twitter for this. I'm like, Tyree Wilson is a lot better than Lukas Van Ness. My eyes are not lying to me here. They have similar profiles, but the tape is different.
The difference between them is that Tyree Wilson has so many more answers when his initial moves are countered. And he's a much better player against the run. He's much more explosive. He'll move people in a way that Lukas Van Ness doesn't. Whenever Tyree Wilson gets a good hand placement and gets a good hand placement on the pads of an offensive lineman and has good leverage, he'll work through it. When Lukas Van Ness does it, he stops. And like I have not seen a snap where Tyree Wilson gets washed off the line.
Yes, agreed.
Doesn't happen. Lukas Van Ness happens all the time.
And he's an elite, run defender as well. He had 13 FTFLs in 2021, 14 half in 2022. Like, that's really, really good stats.
Right. Just to go back to his arm length, though, I just looked it up. 98th percentile of all athletes in the NFL.
Yeah, like he's different. He's built differently.
Tyree Wilson and Darnell Washington. You just get those guys, and you just have arms for days.
And like I think if you get Tyree Wilson in the Eagles building, like they're gonna focus on getting the pass rushing moves. Like he's a little bit of a project, but he can contribute day one. Like I don't think you're gonna have a problem with like redshirting him, quote unquote, or anything like that. I think this guy's different. I think he's one of my favorite players in the draft right now.
He's much bigger than Milton Williams, isn't he?
Yes, much bigger.
Like you instantly get in that rotation of a 3-tech guy. Like just get him in there. Whatever he can play all the spots on the D line. Doesn't matter.
I think he is the third best player in this draft outside of Will Anderson and Jalen Carter in the quarterbacks.
I think he's better than Will Anderson, to be honest.
You think he's better than Will Anderson? Okay.
Yeah, I think his potential is higher than Will Anderson.
I just think the Will Anderson, the production in Alabama, and just I think you kind of have to lean over because he also did play at Texas Tech. It wasn't a crazy amount of good opponents. The schedule was all right, but I would lean Will Anderson. But I get what you're saying. Like I think there's probably going to be teams that have Tyree Wilson on their board above Will Anderson.
Yeah, I think we're also talking about how you use him. Like if you put Tyree Wilson in like next to Jordan Davis, like in the middle of Jordan Davis and Hassan Reddick in a 3-4 defense, and just watch him go. Like put him in that scheme, he would succeed right off the bat.
Would you trade? Let's flip flop the Jalen Carter and Tyree Wilson conversation. Would you trade? No, you wouldn't trade up for him.
No, I would not trade up for him.
I think I would.
I'm just saying, like if you're gonna move up a second round pick to move up 3 spots here, you gotta get me a secure star here. Like you're gonna get me someone who's like unique, like in the Jalen Carter type way. I'm not sure I would say like I get the projection with Tyree Wilson. He's not a safe bet to me in a sense that I would give up a first and second.
Okay, I would trade like next year's third. Let's say. Like, because I think Chicago, I don't think he makes back Chicago at 9. I think they would be all over him. They need defensive line help in the worst way. So I think you'd have to jump Chicago to get him. Maybe you give up a third next year. I think he's that guy. I would do it, but I understand the pushback.
I don't think the drop off is too big between Tyree Wilson and some of the other guys we're going to be talking about.
Okay. All right, next guy up. Let's jump into Myles Murphy.
You want to do Lukas Van Ness just because we touched on here with the Tyree Wilson thing here.
Okay, Lukas Van Ness, 6'5", 270.
You loved this guy in the last episode. You let me know what you learned.
I don't hate Lukas Van Ness. I know you. I don't think he's a pick at 10, and maybe 20, 25. I think he's got talent. We'll talk about it, but we might be a little swayed here because I know he's not your favorite. And if you watch last week's episode, he's definitely
take last week's episode. I let it all out there. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of Lukas Van Ness. I don't know why he wasn't starting at Iowa. That's a legit question I still have. Why is this man not starting at Iowa? Is he bad at practice? Doesn't he listen to his coaches? Like what?
So apparently it's because they prioritize seniority on the defensive line there. So they start quote unquote start seniors the first snap and they rotate in. That's the explanation that I've got. But I'm sure there's a lot more to it than that.
Yeah, that would be my first question. If I'm an NFL team and I get Lukas Van Ness or even his like a coach or something like on the phone, I'll be like, why weren't you starting? Why am I supposed to take you in a first round of an NFL draft when you couldn't start on a college team? Mm-hmm. And your tape shows me that you shouldn't be starting on a college team. I don't know.
Imagine Lukas Van Ness listening to this podcast. Just getting shredded with strays.
I think
left and right from Denmark and Canada.
You're like, who are these international assholes?
Okay, Lukas Van Ness, 6'5", 272 pounds. He has 34-inch arms or 34 arms. Great frame for a defensive lineman, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
He's got the body build. He had some sort of production last year, he had good production last year. 46 pressures, 9 sacks, really good bull rush. But that's the only thing he's got. The other thing is to go watch all 9 sacks that he had. Did you see anything exciting about the 9 sacks that he had? There's a couple in there, but majority of them
one against Ohio State, right, where he literally trips over himself, has time to get on his feet, and then get a sack.
Yeah,
like the play takes like 9 seconds from snap to sack.
His most exciting play is where he comes free off the left side and he chases the quarterback down when he's rolling to the right. Like that's what I'm saying. Like the production's there, but just it doesn't match the eye test for me.
No, if Brandon Thorne would do high quality sack or beat a tackle sacks on him, he wouldn't have a single.
Yes, like Hassan Reddick had the most high quality sacks last year.
Oh yeah,
he anti that.
He beats guys.
Yes, very raw player. Lukas Van Ness needs some work, in my opinion. The majority of snaps in 2021 came from the interior. So last year was his first year as an edge player. So he is versatile, so that does help.
Is he though?
Well, he can play all across the line.
Can he?
Like he's shown it, but like how good can he be?
Like, he did it, but can he? Would you play him at edge? I wouldn't.
Not right now. No. I think you would need a year at edge. I think he would be in the 3-tech rotation right out the gate. That's what I would put him as.
Yeah. Yeah, that wouldn't. It wouldn't be because I wouldn't be like with Tyree Wilson. I'd be like, put him in a 3-tech, have him 1-on-1 against guards, watch him dominate. Mm-hmm. I'll be like, put Lukas Van Ness at 3 because where else would I put him? Like, it's you have players where you're like Jalen Carter, where are you going to play him on the defensive line because it's a good problem to have. And then you have guys like Lukas Van Ness, you're like, where am I going to play him? Because I don't know if I'm really comfortable with him playing anywhere.
So this is his grade and snap counts. So this is through PFF. So he had 19 snaps over the A gap last year, 61.1 grade, 155 over the B gap, 86.7 grade. So that's where he was at his best over the B gap. Over the tackle, 62 snaps, 64.7 grade. Outside the tackle, 242 snaps, 72.6 grade. So PFF liked him the most over the B gap, which is what we're saying here. He's more fit to be a 3-tech. Mm-hmm. What else do I have on Lukas Van Ness? Struggles to read blocking schemes. I've noticed, like, if you watch him, like, he doesn't really know what's coming at him. And I think that's part of the thing. He just started playing football. Not just started, but he started playing football late high school. So this is still a really raw player. He doesn't really know much the ins and outs. He reminds me a little bit of Trey Hendrickson. I think he's got like that sort of upside, but overall, I think Lukas Van Ness is fine, but not a top 25 pick. And I'm going to stick with that probably for the rest of the draft process. I don't think I need to watch more of him. I would be fine taking a look at him at pick 30 for the Eagles, but I think it's a reach out inside the top 25.
Yeah, there's so many players I'd rather have than Lukas Van Ness that I could project playing 3, 5, or even edge. Like, give me Enrico Suma, give me Adetumiwa, give me Foskey, or like basically like Sia Ika or Massey Smith, Calijah Kancey, anybody. Like all of those guys have better pass rushing talent. Horton from TCU, much better pass rusher. So yeah, not a fan. Would not take a look at him anywhere before the second round.
Felix Uzama, are you a Felix Uzama guy?
Yeah, love him.
He's fun. We'll be talking more like deeper edge rushers in a later episode, but there's some guys out there. Yeah, I agree. Where do you think he does go? Because Lance Zierlein's mock today had him going 8th overall the Falcons. Like every single mock draft has Lukas Van Ness going in the top 15, and I feel like I'm taking crazy pills seeing this.
Yeah, I think Daniel Jeremiah always says that when he does his mock drafts, they're not based on what he thinks of the player. They're based on what he's hearing. I think he has him going top 15 as well.
Basically, every mock draft does.
He's going first round, I think. But I think he's one of those guys who's going to slip. Like, I think he's going to go with, like, 20 would probably be my guess. Like, just throwing in. I don't even know who picks there. But somewhere around that for somebody who looks at him like, oh, yeah, intangibles, yeah, whatever. Like, last year, Trevon Walker was the first overall pick because of measurables and not necessarily on tape. So there's something to that teams fall in love with that. The same with like a wide receiver with speed. Like somebody has like KJ Hamler, all out on speed, and you just go with that. You say like, oh, he dropped a ton of balls, not very consistent, but he has speed. Same with defensive linemen, like not really good pass rusher, but has the frame. So yeah, we can work with that. I kind of compare Lukas Van Ness to you remember Bjorn Werner? I think he was German or something like that. He was drafted by the Colts in the first round, based on his frame. He was on Hard Knocks, and there was a clip I remember with the coach saying, I think Werner was German. So the coach told him like, if you get it together, you can be $100 million player. I think that kind of the same with Lukas Van Ness. Like you're drafting him on that projection that you can teach him, and you can like make him realize the potential that he has if he can actually learn to utilize pass rush moves with the body that he has. But Werner was out the league in like 3 years.
Yeah, this is going to take time. Like that's part of the reason why I don't think he fits what the Eagles are doing right now. Like I don't think you can sit on this athletic dude that you don't know where to put. You don't know what his football IQ is and wait around. Like you need players that are going to drop in now. I don't see him fitting the Eagles in the top 25. So
nope. All right.
Well, okay. Next up, that was fun. Lukas Van Ness, Double Doink podcast player officially. Okay, Myles Murphy. This is a guy that I've watched a ton of today. 6'5", 268 pounds, 33 3/4 arms. Hit me with Myles Murphy because I think this is a very interesting player.
Yeah. We hit a little bit on it here before we started recording. A bit of a tough evaluation for me. Like you watch a bunch of snaps where you kind of almost fall asleep because there is like he doesn't really have a plan on his rushers. Like he goes upfield, but he doesn't try to get the edge, or he bull rushes, but he doesn't counter move and doesn't have an answer to the second move of the offensive tackle. And then suddenly, like you just have a bend off the edge where you go, oh, okay, I'm awake. And so the potential is absolutely there. Super inconsistent, and reminded me a little bit of Josh Sweat, a little bit of in a different way, where Josh Sweat in college was so annoying to watch because he was always half a second late to everybody else in the D line, O line, because he wasn't watching the ball. He was watching the offensive tackle always, like for the get off. So he would always be late. So in that same sense, I think Joshua had a little bit more pass rush moves, or at least had a plan more often than Myles Murphy had. But it was kind of the same thing. Whereas Myles, you really see the potential, you see the bend. Like he's one of those guys who really can bend off the edge. Like BJ Ojulari, Nolan Smith, and Myles Murphy are the three guys in this draft. I think they are the best edge beaters, like the ones that can actually club, rip, and bend underneath an offensive tackle.
I thought his 2021 tape was a lot better than his 2022 tape. I think that's one big takeaway I had. He didn't really progress from 2021 to 2022. Here's some stats to back that up. 2021, he had 42 pressures, 9 sacks. 2022, 34 pressures, 6 sacks. So there was a little bit of drop off there. I wanted to ask you, I don't know if you caught on to this, but him and Brian Breesy are kind of in the same boat. They both didn't jump what they were supposed to. Do you think this had anything to do with Brett Venables leaving? So he was the defensive coordinator at Clemson, and then he left, I think, to go become head coach of Oklahoma. And I was when I was doing my research, I was like, did that have something to do with it? Or do you think this was just player related, like, or it's scheme? Because I did read some stuff where the scheme that Clemson brought in this year was really tough for these players.
Yeah, I mean, that can have a massive effect. Like if you're changing defensive philosophy, what they're telling the players to do. I think the prime example would be like a Rashawn Gary while he was at Michigan. Like you just saw him never really rush the passer, and you're like, what am I watching here? And I mean, so if there's just a little bit of that, and then he goes to the Packers, and you see, all right, there's the athletic ability.
Yeah, Rashawn Gary's a great example. He reminds me a lot of Rashawn Gary.
So it's really one of those situations where that can very well be the case, and especially when it's that significant, really, in what you're seeing in the difference from one year to the other, especially when it's going down. That definitely leaves some questions in terms of like, I've seen the player do it, but what is going on in his head, like on games in 2022? What has he been told? What is the defensive scheme telling him to do? What is he keying on? Is he keying on quarterback? Does he have back out the backfield and can't really go full on rush because he has to kind of read the backfield while he's rushing? All the kind of thing.
He loves the long arm pass rush move. Like if you look at all of his like big plays, that's what he did. I threw in a clip on Twitter today about that. I was having a good laugh. Like he loves that pass rush move. When he's at his best, it's working. He had some push. He had a really nice push pull move. I think it was against Virginia Tech that I saw. It brings up the inconsistency part that you said. Like he's not. I want to see more of when he's blocked and when he doesn't have a pathway to the quarterback, him having a second reaction way of getting around this guy. He had a really nice push-pull move against Virginia Tech that I posted as well. Like, I want to see more of that. And I think it's there. I think Myles Murphy is a guy you can unlock. I think he's a guy that I would love in the Eagles building. I just don't know. Do you think 10 is too high?
Yeah.
I do too. Okay, we're on the same page here. I think 10's a little high, but I would be fine with a trade down for a few spots and grabbing a Myles Murphy. I think if you can gather another pick, if you can come out with like an extra second or third and Myles Murphy with pick 10, I think that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah, I think if you're drafting Myles Murphy, it's because of the pass rush ability. And if that's what you're having in the back of your head when you're drafting one of these guys here, I think BJ Ojulari is a much better pick and is a much better player in terms of pass rush potential. But definitely like Myles Murphy in that era, like mid first round, could definitely see it. Would be a great value pick there.
I would keep an eye on the Lions. I think I brought this up last episode too, so a little bit repeating myself. But Lions at 18, trading up maybe to the Eagles at 10 for a quarterback that falls. I'd keep an eye on that as well. But I'm down for Myles Murphy. I think he's a fun player. I think he's a guy that you want in the building. Like I said, he's like, just read his athletic traits. Like he's super athletic, 6'5", 268. You don't make these guys don't just fall off, like just come from the sky. Like this is a freakish athlete. And I was impressed with his tape today. He was a fun watch. So I was pleasantly surprised. I thought I was going to like him a lot less. So, okay, 2 more to go. I think this guy's my favorite. Nolan Smith out of Georgia. 6'2", 238, 4.39, 40-yard dash at the combine. He is an athletic freak as well. He's a super fun player. Hit me with what you think about Nolan Smith.
Built like an outside linebacker, like an off-ball outside linebacker. And again, a tough study because he often played like a off-ball outside linebacker. Like he would drop back into coverage on so many plays because he's good at it. And because Georgia, like when you have a team with the the interior pressure that they were able to create there with a Jalen Carter, and like you have the flexibility to drop a guy like Nolan Smith into coverage. And when he does it as well as he's doing in college, perfect. Like it's great for the scheme. You confuse the opposing quarterback, and there you go. But when he did rush the passer, you see flashes of athletic ability on tape that you don't see from any of the other guys in the edge class. And that includes Will Anderson as well. Like, again, I'll still say B.J. Ojulari, the better pass rusher, but it's like Nolan Smith is the only guy who can really threaten him at that point. I think he's a lot more physical than what his stature gives him credit for. He'll wrong arm a offensive tackle and have inside contain on running plays. He can absolutely have outside contain. He has the speed. Like you see the play against Alabama where Bryce Young is doing like a zone read. He keeps the ball going outside. Nolan Smith engages up on the tackle at the point where Bryce Young is in like at speed and going outside. Nolan Smith is standing still, containing the offensive tackle, disengaging, and then tracks him down. We call it a banana angle. So basically, he's taking like an angle of a banana and then tracks down Bryce Young to the sideline for -2 yards. Like, so absurd. Like, you look at that and you say, "Yep, I got my guy who has the contain. He can absolutely stall offensive linemen off of power, off of pulse in the run game, and he has that potential in the pass as a pass rusher." So, super intriguing.
You brought up last episode how good of a run defender he was, and I didn't watch a lot of the run defending snaps before last episode, so that was something I really wanted to focus on before this episode. He's so good against the run, like his ability to contain. He was so good at containing the edge and inside and contain as well. Like he is an elite run defender right off the bat. I think if you drop him on a defense, he should be able to be a probably the best run defender in this class. Maybe even better than Tyree Wilson, like we talked about earlier. I was really impressed with that. He's more physical than his size says so as well. Like he plays bigger than that 238-pound frame, and he's got a great motor. He chases down guys.
Yeah, exactly. And he'll change direction, whereas the Tyree Wilson will engage up on an offensive lineman, and then he'll be slower of getting his big body in changing a direction and chasing down running back. If Nolan Smith disengages on an offensive lineman, like he is so quick to get after a ball carrier. Like you could play him at off-ball linebacker. Like you could play him at Mike.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, you could. There was a lot of snaps where they played him like a lot of times, like you said, kind of like an outside linebacker formation. He's so good at like sidestepping too. Like I saw like his side shuffle and then attacking a ball carrier in the run as well was really elite, which I really liked. So majority of his snaps. So last year he only played 174 snaps because he got injured. So there wasn't a lot like numbers to go off of from last year. 2 over the tackle and 172 outside the tackle. So that's where Georgia primarily lined him up.
Yeah. And apparently he's one of the best friends of Nakobe Dean.
Yes, he is. And apparently he's really smart. Apparently he I saw someone comment on my tweet today. Let's see if I can pull this up. This is from a guy on Twitter, so I don't know, full disclosure, if this is true.
It's but super verified.
Yeah. Big Cake Jake commented on my Twitter. Shout out Big Cake Jake. He was studying to be a civil engineer and got his master's in mathematics. We like a smart guy. We like a nerd.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I mean, he'll be perfect for the Eagles in the sense that if he can get into a wide 9 position, that's his spot. That is so perfect for what he be. Like even like talk about like getting a rookie on the field. Worst case scenario where you have a solid edge rotation of Hassan Reddick, Josh Sweat, Brandon Graham, and who the fuck knows if Derek Barnett suddenly becomes Brandon Graham 2.0 with late bloomer type. I don't know. Like play Nolan Smith at outside linebacker. Have him be the Sam next to a Nakobe Dean and Mike.
Yeah.
It would not be you wouldn't notice.
I think I'm down for him at 10. Yeah, I would take him at 10.
I would not be mad at it at all. I could definitely see the reasoning, see the potential. The athleticism is there combined with production and tape that just shows a special player. So, yeah, I love it.
Mm-hmm. I was really liking his tape the last couple of days. He's a really fun guy. Here's one more question before we move on to the last guy. Are you worried at all with the pairing between him and Hassan Reddick, like having them both on the field at the same time?
No, why would it be then?
Just they're both undersized. Like, just wondering if that's something that you keep in mind.
No, but both of them play the run really well. Like you have that's why you run a 3-4 defense. So you have three interior bigger defensive tackle. Like you would bank on your 3 or 4 tech defensive end to make up for the lack of size in your edge rushers. That's why you run a 3-4.
Okay, last guy. Full disclosure, Thomas is probably going to dominate this conversation. I haven't done a ton of tape watching on him, so I don't want to throw out stuff that I don't know much about. That's not me. Calijah Kancey out of Pittsburgh. Come on down. Calijah Kancey, 6'1", 281 pounds. He's got those 30 and 5/8 arms, which we'll hold that conversation. But hit me with Calijah Kancey. He's one of your favorites.
Yeah, I mean that's the only reason that Calijah Kancey isn't being talked about as a top 5 pick in this draft is the arms. And so there's. I think Calijah Kancey is one of those prime examples of a player that really split the waters between guys who look at spider charts and analytical things about players and guys who watch the tape. And what do you weigh more when you're projecting a player going into the NFL? Because if you weigh all the measurables, you're going to hate him. And you're not going to want anything to do with him in the first round, probably. If you just look at the tape and look at how he compensates for his lack of size and actually even utilizes his size to his advantage in having leverage on offensive linemen and always being the lower guy on contact, you love it. He played everywhere on Pitt's defensive line, everywhere from 0 tech and even a like 3-4, even a 2-5. They just ran with him at 0 tech. One guy at 5, and then just 5 linebackers behind it. He would be the only guy there. And the reason that worked for them also is because when Kancey has space to work with, he'll set up offensive linemen for failure. Like he's so explosive off his first step, like nobody I've ever seen before. I didn't do a lot of Aaron Donald draft tape study. I didn't give a shit back then. So I didn't watch Aaron Donald coming out of college. I don't know what that looked like. But I've never seen anybody on a defensive line have that first step as Calijah Kancey does.
Hell yeah.
He's like, you can talk about smaller arms, but also when you're working your arms, when you're that powerful in your punch and you can bend your waist while delivering a blow, he has so much energy in his punches, and he always follows it up with this super fast counter move after it, like club, rip underneath somebody, or even just jump behind him. Like he'll club with somebody, go 90 degrees, and he's on the outside of them. Like, and he jumps from one A gap to the other A gap on the other side of the field like this, and the center has no idea what hit him. Like the offensive linemen are not built to defend that in pass rush. So he is an absolute menace when he's a pass rusher. Now in the run, that's what we will be worried about, because obviously, when he's working as an interior pass rusher, he's got everything. Like he has everything you need you want. If you go, well, he doesn't really, that small. Can you play with power? When he pops an offensive lineman, just going straight in bull rush with as low as he is to the ground, delivering that amount of force, he's driving people backwards. And combining that with his explosive ability, he can push pull he's making big offensive linemen look stupid, like super unathletic. So, and then in going to the run game, of course, there are plays where he gets moved off the line. It happens. It happens with everyone. Like Lukas Van Ness, we talked about it. That this big Hercules type figure getting moved off the line. Really, it's more about how you're playing it technique wise and how you're making it. If you can make it difficult for the offensive lineman to get the hands on you, and if you can work away the hands of the offensive lineman, they can't move you. And that's where Calijah Kancey's strength is. If he's getting double teamed, he'll usually smack the hands away of the first blocker, lean into the second one. He won't make the play in the run game, but he'll stall that double team. And that's what you want from a situation like that. So they want the perfect scenario is a D lineman like Jordan Davis. He can stall 2 people. He won't make the tackle himself, but he can stall 2 people. So if you have a guy in there who is not a liability in the run game and has ability above anybody else as a pass rusher, I think that is Calijah Kancey. That is what you're projecting him to be. Maybe the arms simply is too big of an issue for him to be that Aaron Donald type figure in the NFL. But to me, the floor and the ceiling is kind of close, and I would put him right at that Ed Oliver type player.
That's a good comparison.
Yeah,
sorry, go on. Sorry.
No, I'm done.
Okay. I'm really blown away with his pass rush statistics, like and how productive he was rushing the passer. 22.9% pass rush win rate last year, which is an elite production. He had 358 snaps over the B gap last year, 91.9 PFF grade. That's really good. Like I feel like he would be a really good fit to Jordan Davis next to him. What is your opinion on him being taken at 10?
I love it.
You love
it? I would throw my hands in the air. I'd probably run a victory lap just so I can point at people on Twitter and laugh at them. But remember, I have a tendency of falling in love with players who are kind of out of the ordinary.
Yeah. That's like me with wide receivers. I always fall in love with just like the fastest guys, and it's something that I have a problem with.
Yeah.
I want my next Deshaun Jackson every single year.
I could just imagine that that this would be the type of we've all seen the interview now with Jason Kelce and interviewing Howie Roseman and how he's talked about that Jason Kelce was an anomaly when he was drafted because of his size, and centers weren't supposed to look like that. Well, I could see this being kind of a situation where the NFL wouldn't look at a guy like Calijah Kancey as a guy who could play defensive tackle because of his size in that sense, but he's like the tape is just there. So if everybody else is sigging away from it, take a shot. Like best case scenario.
How he said that in the interview, right? He said going forward, we're going to have to find value, and where teams don't find value.
Yeah,
this is a perfect example of that.
And again, he will be in a perfect situation with the Eagles. That will be exactly what he'd be drafted for. If he's being drafted into a 4-3 defense and he's in a one technique right next to a center and a guard, he's going to have a tough time in a lot of games. He's going to get winded because he's going to get blown up by double teams a lot of the time. Like he's going to have to really utilize all of his power to withstand that. But if he can play in a situational scheme where he's a lot more free as a pass rusher, he would contribute right off the bat, and Eagles love that. Pass rush from defensive interior guys. Jalen Carter, Calijah Kancey are the elite pass rushers in this draft of defensive tackles, and that's what the league wants. That's the modern thing, and I would not be surprised if he is drafted a lot higher than people think. Even top 10 would not surprise me.
Fuck, I wish I watched him before. I ran out of time. I should have watched him. I'm fired up. That's gonna be my homework for tomorrow. Is watch.
All right, so
I'll hit you in the DM.
Do me a favor. Do me a favor. Watch his game against Tennessee. Let me just see here what else is up. Go to YouTube. Watch his game against Tennessee and watch his game against one more. Hold on 1 second.
Was it Virginia? He had a really good game, I think.
Yeah. Take West Virginia and Tennessee, and then just give me a quick message. What do you think?
Okay, that's gonna be my homework for tomorrow.
You'll see that pass rush win rate stat is really only a quarter, like only 1/4.
Okay. Why don't we talk quickly before we go? If you were to rank these 6, 1 to 6 in order, I'll start. I'll do 1 to 5 because I don't have a take on Kancey yet. So 1 to 6, I would put Jalen Carter at 1, Tyree Wilson at 2, Nolan Smith at 3, Myles Murphy at 4, and then Lukas Van Ness at 5.
All right, we got 5 guys. I'm writing them down here just to make sure they got all. All right, so I'll go Carter 1. He's a specimen.
He's in his own category here.
Yeah. Shit. I'll go.
We didn't have this plan. I put you on the spot.
Tyree, Smith, and Kancey split 2. Like I really couldn't give a shit which one of those. Like I would be happy with each and every one of them. Calijah Kancey would probably a little bit of a personal victory. So maybe I'll go him 2A, Tyree Wilson 2B, and then Nolan Smith 2C, and then Lukas Van Ness. Lukas Van Ness shouldn't be on the list. I mean, can I move him up? I'll cross him off my list right there.
Oh man. We should slide this. When we upload this podcast, I'm just gonna slide in his Instagram DMs. Like, Oh man. All right. I think that's enough for today. We're 54 minutes in. All right, Thomas, that was fun. Where do you should we talk about what we're gonna do next? What do you want to do next? Where do you want to lean?
What do you want to do next? Do you want to go a little bit offensive here? Like just gather the offensive
I was
group,
thinking like a tight end running back mix, maybe.
Right.
Okay,
I think both you and I are looking at this tight end class and going,
yeah, like
there's some guys here.
Thank you. I'm all aboard the Eagles taking a tight end with one of their first day 1 or day 2 picks. Like I think this
talking
is
about physical specimens. You're like Darnell Washington is bigger than Jason Kelce, so by miles.
Yeah, like
I've never seen anything like it.
I think dropping a legit pass catching and blocking tight end, like a talent that's starter worthy in this 12 personnel offense would take this offense to a next level. They have to find these little holes. They have to find these little gaps because a lot of their players are already taken for. You have your wide receivers, you have your offensive line. You have to find those little victories. And I think tight end 2 is a little victory they can find because Jack Stoll and Grant Calcaterra didn't give them much when Dallas Goedert was out, even with Dallas Goedert when he was healthy. So I think that tight end 2 role is becoming very underrated right now for Philadelphia.
Can get Quez Watkins off the field.
Oh man. Yeah, so we'll be back next week with an episode, probably leading that. But anything else before we go?
No, let's get out of here.
All right. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. Really appreciate it. Make sure to check out our sponsor, BetterHelp. Make sure to subscribe to the YouTube channel. Tons of great content on the YouTube channel coming your way over the next 3 weeks. I have so many cool guests lined up. Thomas, of course, is going to be on once a week as we go through to the draft, and a lot more cool guests on top of that. You're going to be loving the YouTube channel. You won't regret subscribing. Hit that subscribe button wherever you listen to your podcast as well, Apple, Spotify, you name it. We will talk to you later.